readers, welcome back to my channel. Happy Bookoween and happy Halloween. That is right, it is October 31st, possibly my favorite day of the year, although as I've gotten older it has tied with Christmas a little bit more and more, but as you can see, I still love to rock a good spooky witchy vibe on Halloween, and I'm so excited to be sharing my October wrap up with you guys. So without any further ado, let's get into this. As I predicted, spooky season was much better for me in terms of reading. I finished 8 books total. I'm not gonna lie, there were a couple that I had wanted to get to, but I didn't do as much pre-filming for Bookoween as I had meant to do, and that threw off my ability to be able to read in the evenings because I was filming. So it's my own fault, so. But anyway, with no particular order, we're gonna get into this wrap up, starting with the one I just finished literally this morning, and that is Halloween Party by Agatha Christie. This follows Detective Hercule Poirot as he investigates a murder in the countryside. At a Halloween party, a girl named Joyce makes this claim to have seen a murder, and then she herself is later murdered. She's found in the bobbing for apples tub. And this kicks off a whole stream of events in which Poirot does some digging into the town history and learns some secrets which ultimately led to Joyce's demise. Now, I won't lie, I think I ruined my personal enjoyment of this one a little bit by doing the audiobook. I like to pay attention to the clues a little bit more along the way, the little bits of people acting a little bit suspicious and weird, and I just couldn't do that because I was doing it purely through audiobook. I obviously have the physical book, but I really wanted to finish it by today. I had to read this one for spooky season. I couldn't miss it and put it off another year. I have other ones that I was like, okay, I could either read them after or read them next year as part of spooky season, and that would be fine. But this one I just had to get to. Something about it I knew would just be right, and it was fantastic. It was a 5 out of 5. I loved it. But like I said, I think I ruined my own personal enjoyment by not being able to sort of quickly go back and read it. You know, I think I absorbed it not as well as I wanted to. And so I can't wait to actually go back and physically read it and see if I can pick up on the clues, because I was a little bit surprised. Without spoiling the who, I can't say much other than on the one hand, I wasn't totally taken aback, and on the other hand, I was like, this is kind of out of left field. How did I miss this? So that's why I want to go back and read it physically so I can maybe pick up on the clues. It was hard to listen in the car and have it be, I listen to audiobooks very quickly, so I think I missed some of the subtlety there, and I think that, like I said, is my own fault. It was not the story's fault. It was really good. I would highly recommend it for anyone who likes a little mystery. It wasn't too spooky. It was kind of borderline cozy mystery, but it wasn't quite as hokey as a cozy mystery. It was very well done, very well executed, and I love it. I loved it so much, and I can't wait to reread it again next year and see if I can pick up the clues that I missed this year. Speaking of cozy mysteries, you guys saw me talk about it in its own little video, but I read Curse the Day by Annabelle Chase. It is a spellbound paranormal cozy mystery book 1, and this follows our main character, Emma Hart, who gets stuck in a town called Spellbound after discovering, by being stuck there, that she is a witch, because Spellbound is a town of supernatural creatures who cannot cross this magical border that is said to have been put there by this evil enchantress that somebody upset. No one seems to be able to take it down, but Emma gets stuck there unintentionally because she thinks she's helping this gentleman, and she's not. She's getting stuck. I think I rated this like a 4 or a 5. It's obviously not the most complex writing style because it is a cozy mystery, so it's not like an Agatha Christie where it wasn't spooky, so it had a kind of cozy mystery vibe, but it's not a nuanced case at all. This is one you read purely for just enjoyment, and I read it because I heard it had very Halloween Town vibes with a town of supernatural creatures, and something's going on, and somebody has to figure out what's going on, and Emma kind of has the Marnie Piper kind of vibes where she doesn't know she's a witch initially at the start of the story, and then she figures it out and has to learn how to be a witch and how to exist in this town and all that stuff as she's roped into being their new public defender after the other one is murdered right before she shows up. So, like I said, I think it's a 4 or a 5, but I went into it knowing it was a cozy mystery. The writing style was not going to be overly complex, and that I was looking for fun Halloween Town vibes. And in that respect, the story very much delivers, and I would recommend it. If you like a more nuanced, sort of complicated mystery, this probably isn't going to be the one for you. Next, I read the graphic novel Squad by Maggie Takuta Hall and Lisa Sterl, and this follows our main character, Becca, who starts at a new high school. Her mom moves her from her old one because this new high school has a great reputation for getting kids into great colleges, so she moves them there, and Becca, by chance, falls in with this group of girls who are the most popular girls in school. Everyone wants to be them, be like them, be their friend, and Becca learns that they are werewolves. The story actually kind of takes place in an entire flashback. It sort of starts at the end and circles its way back through, showing flashbacks along the way within the main flashback of the story having already happened and Becca being through this wild time in her life. But she learns that these girls kill predatory boys sort of in retribution, rather than becoming the prey, if that makes sense. So they justify killing boys and eating them by saying that they're preying on those who would prey on others. And she kind of goes along with it, but deep down she knows it's not right. She knows it's not who she really is and wants to be. And it was kind of a wild ride. I think I gave this a 4 or 5. It was really well done. I love the sort of black with neon color 90s aesthetic, and the art style was really great as well. I also liked that different sections had different color palettes, and by that I mean when the girls are sort of living their everyday lives as your everyday typical popular teenage girls, it has a very bright, colorful aesthetic, and when they're werewolves and they're doing their darker deeds, they tend to be represented in more muted tones, and there's a lot of reds and blacks and grays, and I think that dichotomy in color really represented the dichotomy within their personalities really well as well. And it was just another fun read. I knew it was going to be a very campy kind of 90s Buffy's Charmed vibe. You know, it's about girls in high school navigating sort of the monsters and demons of high school while being supernatural creatures, and that very much gave me Charmed and Buffy vibes, which it delivered on. Next, we have The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This follows our main character, Dorian Gray, as he starts off at 18, and he has his portrait done by this artist that he's friends with, and this other guy that he meets through his artist friend, Lord Henry Wotton, sort of makes this offhand kind of callous remark how being young and beautiful is all there really is in life, and once you don't have that, you have nothing. And so Dorian makes this wish that he never's gonna grow old, that the picture would grow old instead, and by some happenstance, that becomes the case. Once Dorian figures out that the picture is aging in his place and sort of bearing the sins of his soul in his place, he starts living this life of debauchery and ultimately crime. And I just didn't like this one as much as I wanted to. I expected a lot more debauchery and crime, and a lot of it was me getting long descriptions about how he spent a lot of money investing in like frivolous things like gems and pictures and whatever. And I get that that's supposed to be part of his sins, but that was most of them, it seemed like. And then it was alluded to that he was sort of messing about with other people's girls and possibly guys and other things. You know, he was just getting into all manner of nonsense, but I didn't actually get to see that. I just don't think that I was getting what I was looking for out of it. I don't think by any means it was a bad story or poorly written or anything like that. I just think I was looking to see it get a little bit raunchy, and I didn't feel it got raunchy enough for a story that's supposed to be about a guy who's committing all these sins to the point that this picture becomes unrecognizably old and ugly, bearing the sins of his soul. So I just wanted to see more of how the picture got to be how it got, okay? I wanted to see, not be told, and I certainly didn't want to hear about gems that long. Next, I read the graphic novel Fangs by Sarah Anderson, and she also does Sarah's Scribbles. Those get posted online a lot, so you might be familiar with them. But this follows the relationship between a vampire and a werewolf. It's a really short little graphic novel, and it basically just follows them sort of meeting and falling for each other and kind of learning to work through their differences and their different needs within their relationship. It was a cute little spooky read, and I appreciate the sort of simple black and white aesthetic. It kind of helps you be sort of in the moment more and sort of noticing the little details and how they interact and all that, rather than getting distracted by color. But story-wise, it was not very complicated. It's just a little snippet kind of thing, like I said, if you're into something like that. And if you're not, I wouldn't recommend it for you. But it's a little graphic novel. It's not a long read at all. I think less than half an hour for me. It was just something cute to pick up to get me in the spooky vibe, so it worked. Next, I read Under the Whispering Door by TJ Cloon, and I loved this book so much. I did a 15 thoughts I had while reading it video, so if you want to know some specific thoughts I had, go check that out. But I loved it. It was a really beautiful story about this man who passes suddenly and has to deal with the fact that he's now a ghost, and he's in this way station before he crosses over, and he ends up finding what he never really realized he needed in his life, in his afterlife. And it's about that journey that he goes on, about having to sort of make these bonds and then let them go because he's meant to cross over. And it's told in such a quirky, simple way, but it deals with these big, nuanced emotions, and they're dealt with so beautifully. You kind of get that because life is kind of absurd, and absurd emotions happen where you're upset and laughing at the same time. You get a lot of that, and I actively reacted to this novel as I was reading it. I laughed out loud, I cried, I laughed and cried, I snorted at stuff. It was just, it was really emotional and really well done. But I do want to say that I do want to provide a little bit of a trigger warning. It deals with things like murder and suicide. So if that's something that's triggering for you, just be wary of it going into this novel, because it is a novel primarily about death and sort of life within death, which is a really hard concept to understand, but going through those kinds of emotions and hearing them described is hard to go through, even as a reader. So if that's something you need to be wary of, just know that. But aside from that, I would really, really highly recommend this book. It's really well done. I loved it. That's really all I have to say about it. I don't have any qualms with how the story was written. I thought the writing style and voice was fantastic. I don't have any qualms with the way the plot played out. I loved it. The sort of big bad figure, the manager he's called, is exactly what I expected, which was not surprising to me because I read and watch a lot of supernatural type stuff. So having a supernatural entity present within the story was not something that was unfamiliar to me. So I expected what I got out of the manager for the most part. I was hoping for the ending that I got, but for a little while there, it was on the rocks and I wasn't sure I was gonna get it. And I was actually actively making my own peace with how the story might end as it was playing out, which was kind of fitting, as the main character Wallace is making peace with the fact that he has died and he has to let these people that he found in death go. And I can't say enough good things about it. I really loved it. So I really do recommend it. Just be wary that it does deal with dark topics. So it's something you need to be mentally prepared for going into it. Next, I read Your Guide to Not Getting Murdered in a Quaint English Village by Maureen Johnson and Jay Cooper. This is a funny little guidebook to not getting murdered in a quaint English village. It basically says if you leave the big city and go to the countryside, don't. Because that is where the little crazy murders happen, a la Halloween story following Hercule Poirot, because he leaves London and he ends up in a town where a quirky little murder happened. And it's just this funny little guidebook full of these beautiful illustrations. They're black and white with like aspects of red to like really emphasize stuff. And it's just it's the funniest little novel. or guidebook. I don't even know what to call it. It's not really anything. It's just its own weird little book. And it basically recommends that you put the book down immediately, which is always my favorite start to a book. I enjoy that so much. I think it's so fun. But the categories that it has within its contents are the village, the manor, and then you kind of get within those categories buildings and spaces, the residents of the village events, and then you take a little quiz to see if you can pass surviving in the village itself. And then at the manor, building and spaces, rooms and architecture, furnishing and features, the residents of the manor, the staff, frequent guests, and manor events. And then you take a manor quiz to see if you can survive there as well. And it's a fun little read. I don't even think it's particularly Halloween-y. If you're somebody who likes mysteries, especially ones that are set in the English countryside, this is definitely a book for you. I give it a 5 out of 5. I knew going into it that it would just be this funny little quirky thing, and it delivered. So not disappointed at all that I now have this, and I think it's very appropriate to go with my Agatha Christie collection. And last but not least, I did my yearly reread of Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell and Faith Erin Hicks. This follows Deja and Josiah, two friends working at a pumpkin patch on Halloween night. It's the end of the season, it's the end of their high school year, so it's their last year at the pumpkin patch, and they're both sort of reminiscing about the years they had together as they're trying to help Josiah talk to his long-time pumpkin patch crush, whom he's never talked to in the years that they've worked there. And Deja goes, you know what? This year, this last night, you're talking to this girl, if only so that you can start a relationship with her or move on. You just need to do it. So they sort of go on this little hijinks adventure through the pumpkin patch, getting into all kinds of shenanigans while they're reminiscing, trying to find this girl. And when he ends up meeting her, it's not quite what he expected. And I won't say any more than that because I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it. I would highly recommend it. It is the cutest little autumnal story. Perfect for Halloween, of course, because it takes place on Halloween night, but perfect in autumn in general. But I always tend to wait till October because it feels just so like a cozy, fun start to the month. And I love the art style. It's very colorful. There's a lot of autumnal colors within it. They're wearing red, but the backgrounds are always sort of dark blues or mauves or these sort of orangey colors. It's very, very cozy autumnal, and it's perfect. And it's a quick read. I think half an hour. You probably can knock it out. So I would highly recommend it, and I love the way this story plays out. It just gives me all the warm and cozy vibes, and because obviously I've reread it, I think very highly of it. 5 out of 5. Love this one. Now, I do have to work today, but I'll be out by dinner time, and I don't really have any plans for the evening. I might watch some spooky movies or some Halloween-y movies. We'll see. But I might also try to sneak in one more book if I can, and that is The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. This follows a group of friends who are trying to find their friend Pip after he's whisked away, and they join the sinister Carapace Clavicle Moundshroud as he takes them on an unforgettable journey through time and space. So it just sounds perfectly Halloween-y. I don't know much else about it other than it's supposed to be really perfectly Halloween-y. The cover with all the kids in the costume and this sort of skull shape to everything with the pumpkins. It's really funky, and I haven't read any Ray Bradbury, but I feel like I'm missing out, and this one's relatively short, so I think I might be able to knock it out. It's only, 145 pages. So I think if I set my mind to it, I might be able to enjoy one last Halloween read, but I won't be able to let you guys know how I feel about it. I'm sure if I get to it, I will love it because it's a Halloween read and I love most of them. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by leaving a like down below, and if you want to keep up with me and have my bookish adventures, you can go ahead and click the subscribe button. And I highly recommend that you ring the little bell because it will notify you every time I post a new video. And going back into November, I'm going to go back to my every Friday schedule, so you have that to look forward to. Ring that bell so you get notified. Ring that bell so you get notified on Fridays when my videos go up. I will see you guys next week with the next... I will see you guys next week with a new one. Bye! Happy Halloween!